Okay, welcome to Self-Confidence Month. I'm chatting with Michaela Newsom. Michaela, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do? And then we'll
Yes.
tackle self-confidence.
Okay, so I'm Michaela and I am a nutritional therapist, and I help women with their health and hormones using the power of food as medicine. So particularly I work with lots of women in perimenopause. That's when your hormones go a bit loopy. And, you know, I feel quite passionate about this topic because perimenopause, when women hit perimenopause, you know, they're in their 40s. Generally, they've got a nice, long, successful career. They've got family, they've got a home, you know, and the kids are often a little bit older. So it's just at that stage of life where you kind of think that you've got your shit together, you know, everything's going well. And then suddenly, like, you can't remember people's names at work, in meetings, you're going blank and, you know, bursting into tears for no reason. And it can feel kind of like you're going a bit crazy, especially if you don't really know what's going on, because we have this kind of thing in our head that menopause happens when in your 50s, but actually there's up to 10 years before that where it all kind of starts. And you know, when you start not being able to perform how you have been able to, it can have a huge impact on self-confidence. And I think the other thing that kind of happens in perimenopause, it's kind of that acknowledgement that you're getting older. So unfortunately, we live in a society that tends to value youth and beauty over experience and wisdom. So, you know, everywhere you look, it's kind of people trying to look younger and more beautiful. And, you know, if you are struggling with the whole concept of perimenopause, that again can have a huge impact on kind of your self-confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. What you've described there was me. I mean, I totally thought that menopause was a thing that happened in your 50s, full of hot flushes, periods end, jobs are good. And so why on earth was I suddenly not sleeping and angry and gaining weight and forgetting things and unable to do my job? And yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm working with kind of women, although I am a nutritional therapist, unfortunately, there isn't like a food or anything that you can eat that's suddenly going to give you self-confidence. But I do work a lot on kind of mindset as well. And actually, just because everything else seems to kind of feel very out of control, when you empower people to kind of take, you know, control of their health and stuff, that immediately can kind of help with the kind of self-confidence aspect of it. But like when I'm working with clients, you know, there's 5 things that I kind of generally tend to tell them to do. Like the first thing is give yourself a pat on the back. Okay. Our minds are kind of programmed to look for the negative, and so when we're feeling down, we tend to struggle to find any positive or value in what we're doing. So I get the ladies to make a note of all the things that you've achieved in the day. And now this can be the smallest things, like, did you get your kids up and dressed into school on time? Brilliant. Don't underestimate that. Some kids don't have that. So if you're doing that, that's brilliant. Well done. You know, if you've got a meal on the table for everybody, brilliant. Write it down at the end of the day. So try and come up with at least 3 things that you can journal about what you were proud of that happened that day. And I have a lovely little exercise that I like doing, which is called the Strengths Finder. And in this, I get them to try and get to the bottom of what their strengths are. So I'll ask them to list 8 strengths. And a lot of the time, people struggle. They can do 1 or 2, but getting to 8 is, you know, sometimes a bit of a push. So then I'll ask things about, okay, so what are some of the biggest challenges you've had in your life and how did you overcome them? You know, what achievements have you done that you're really proud of? What do you like and admire most about yourself? What are you really good at? You know, are there any skills that you've got that other people don't? And actually, people can then come up with quite a big list. And then I get them to make a strength statement. So it's like, if you're, for example, taking an achievement that you've done, you'll say, I am someone who has done X, Y, Z, and I can do A, B, C. And then I get them to use it as like a kind of affirmation and say it over and over to themselves every day, or have it somewhere that's really visible where they'll see it every day. I mean, I love affirmations. You know, our brain is programmed to look for the negative, which, although, you know, it doesn't really suit us in this day and age, like back in the day, it actually ensured our survival. You know, in a negative situation, you'd need to take action to survive, you know, if there was no food or no shelter or predators lurking. So if you didn't take action, you know, you would become ill or die. But now everything is hunky-dory and the brain has no need to kind of take notice and action. But our lifestyles just kind of don't fit with that, really. So we kind of, when we get negative thoughts, they can tend to quickly spiral and become something much bigger than they actually kind of necessarily need to be. So I like using affirmations and getting your brain used to thinking in a positive way. And there's loads of evidence to show that the more you, it's like a muscle, isn't it? The more you practice thinking positively, the more it will just happen naturally.
Absolutely. It's like all those things, isn't it? The more you start noticing, whether it's the positive, whether it's that you go out in nature and you start noticing birds around you or whatever, once you start making yourself notice it, you're like, oh God, it's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing that I always encourage my ladies to do is accept compliments. Like when you get a compliment, I mean, most of us do it, okay? But when you get, like, you just brush it off. Oh no, this old thing, you know, oh, drag this out the bottom of the wardrobe. No, take the compliment, you know, accepting that compliment. It's telling your brain that you are good enough, that you deserve the compliment, and someone else, you know, cares enough about you to have noticed and stuff. So, I mean, that is something that is so little and small, but actually it makes a huge difference on kind of how you're feeling.
Absolutely. And also, what can be really nice is paying a compliment to someone else.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And like a complete stranger. It's such a nice feeling when you go up and you go, I love your trousers. And people go,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
thank you. And both of you remember it for the rest of the day.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. I bought last winter, I bought a massive puffer coat. I mean, it's like a duvet. I love it. But when I started wearing it, loads of people would stop me and say, oh my God, I love your coat. And you're right. It's like, oh, wow, thanks, you know, and you feel really good. So it's nice to kind of spread that feeling as well.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. I saw a lady in town, this must have been months ago now, and she must have been in her 70s. She had the coolest trousers on with elephants on them.
Amazing.
And I was just like, oh my God, I love your trousers. And she just went, thank you so much. Went quite early, you know, sort of like, oh, it was just such a lovely feeling. For, you know, she was obviously flattered that someone had noticed, and I felt so happy that she felt happy.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So it was a mutually good thing.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not just receiving a compliment. Giving a compliment can make you feel good as well, can't it?
And that's where actually, when somebody does brush off the compliment, it's kind of like, oh,
yeah.
And so it's, you know, yes, I know people who aren't used to taking compliments and whose self-confidence is quite low and whatever will sort of think, oh no, I need to brush off this compliment. But actually, if you get into the habit of giving compliments, and then you see how nice it is when somebody thanks you for that compliment, you start to see the other side of how actually maybe accepting the compliment is quite a nice thing too.
Absolutely. And like you say, it's something that's really simple, but it's something that does take a lot of practice for some people. But it's definitely worth putting the effort in. And then thinking about other things that I kind of do with my ladies is prioritizing to do one thing a week that's just for you. So like when you hit your perimenopausal years, like generally, like the women have been spent years looking after the family and putting everyone else's needs first, and your own needs kind of drop to the bottom of the pile. And what this can do is it can kind of start to subconsciously tell yourself that you don't matter, that your needs don't matter. And then you kind of getting those messages on repeat, and then you start to believe it. And then it all kind of spirals out of control. So making sure that you just do something that's for you and that you prioritize it will start to change that message that you're telling yourself. And then the another thing is about not taking on other people's stuff. So the way that someone might talk to you, for example, it's rarely to do with you. You know, our behavior and how we respond to things is kind of based on a lifetime of habits. And if someone, take bullies for example, you know, often their behavior is nothing to do with you personally. It's to do with their own feelings of inadequacy or something that's happened to them in their childhood, and they may just feel the need to have power and control over something else, which unfortunately it might just be you, but very rarely is someone else's stuff to do with you. So I think that's quite a good one, isn't it?
And I have to admit, I'm going to hold my hands up here and say I have literally just got back from a situation where I was cross in the situation, not at the person in front of me, and bless her, she was apologising.
Yeah.
And I'm really sort of at pains to go, I'm not angry at you, and I'm shouting at the app on my phone anyway. And I won't go into the long boring details, but I felt awful that this lady felt that she needed to apologise.
Yeah. I mean, we all do it, don't we? So like something will trigger us and we'll react, and the way we're reacting to something is never really to do with the person at the other end. It's something, you know, it's happened to me lots, you know, and like, you know, especially if you are, I don't know, say you're trying to return something or you're speaking telephones, you know, when you have to like help centres where the person can't help you and you're like, why can't you help me? And you're getting annoyed because your situation isn't being resolved, but actually it's not the person on the other end of the phone fault. You know, there's other things that are at play. And so, yeah, it's really important not to take on other people's stuff.
There was a saying, I remember reading this, I'm going to misquote it, but, you know, sentiment is correct. It is something like holding on to the emotions of someone else's issue or holding on to anger at a situation that was out of your control is like taking poison and expecting the other person to drop dead. I massively misquoted it, but the sentiment is absolutely correct. That
it is,
if we spend our time just ruminating over something that's someone else's issue, we're only causing ourselves damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know, this is, you know, behavior and everything, it all comes from things that you pick up subconsciously through kind of out your lifetime, and a lot of the beliefs that kind of lead you to maybe feel not as confident as you used to be, again, are they're not actually, there's no facts supporting it. It's just this kind of spiral. So I always get my ladies to kind of challenge the beliefs that they're thinking, because you end up in this kind of vicious cycle where, you know, if you have a belief that, I don't know, I'm not pretty enough, or you know, I'm not slim enough or whatever, think about what thoughts then that you get from that limiting belief, and then what actions do you take from the thoughts. So it might be like, oh, there's no point bothering, I'm just going to eat this, you know, this family bag of crisps or whatever. What behaviors do you get? Then what action, you know, what results do you get? And you'll find that actually the actions then kind of support your beliefs, but actually the belief was nonsense anyway. So, you know, you have to challenge it and ask, you know, is this actually true? Or, you know, what evidence have I got? And what evidence is there that disproves it as well? You know,
I think as women, and certainly in the UK, I think we're particularly strong at not wanting to focus on our positives, at not wanting to seem like we're bragging, you know. Yeah. And yet actually that then sends you, as you say, down a really negative spiral of like, I'll just look at all the negatives and, oh look, I'm a complete failure. Brilliant. Yeah. Good. I've proved myself correct. I'm a complete failure because I can't possibly accept and acknowledge that I'm actually a kind person, or that I have friends who love me, or that I'm a great mum, or whatever, because, oh no, I can't do that because that would be bragging.
Yeah, absolutely. We do you know what, I took my kids bowling a couple of weeks ago, and it turns out my son is a demon bowler, to the point he was just thrashing all of us. It was no fun for any of us, but he was kind of like, you know, doing a little jig and like up in your face, like, oh, and I was like, stop bragging. And then I was thinking, right, this isn't right, because, you know, he's doing something really good. And it's like you say, there's this kind of fine line, isn't it? We don't like braggers, but actually fair play to him. He was doing really well. He should own it and be confident in it. So yeah, it's tricky. There's so much stuff that's kind of we've picked up along the way that all kind of feeds into this lack of confidence that we feel in perimenopause.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, as everything starts changing, it can be really discombobulating to think, okay, I thought I was getting a handle on this. I thought I'd finally established that I was a decent human, but now something's changed, and am I still a decent human? And my body shape has changed. I wonder if it has changed whether I'm a decent human. And it's like, well, you're probably still a decent human, regardless of what shape you are. Do you know what I mean? Unless you've become a murderer or whatever, I'm going to say you're probably still a decent human. So let's focus on that.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
we have to remember that, like, it's not you, it's your hormones. Like, your hormones affect your neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters impact how you think and how you react, and it's that that's changed. It's not you. You're still epic and wonderful, but you know, you're having to deal with this kind of change in your physiology that unfortunately takes a while to get through. But when you do get through the other side and everything kind of evens out, you know, you find your confidence is back. So it's just how to manage it in that kind of transition period.
Yeah, I think a nice thing that a few people have sort of alluded to is the sort of idea that at the moment we're in our cocoon, ready to become a butterfly.
Oh yeah.
You know, and actually while you're in the cocoon, it is a bit of an odd stage, and it may be difficult to see all the positives, but know that the butterfly is going to happen, and that, you know, it's going to be good is a lovely way to sort of think, okay, I can probably manage this. If the butterfly is going to happen, I can probably cope with the cocoon phase.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. It's wonderful.
But yeah, so but all your suggestions are really good for making the cocoon phase good.
Yeah.
Rather than just going, okay, when's the butterfly? When's the butterfly? Come on, butterfly. Hurry up.
Exactly. Just tips and, you know, tools to help you get through until you emerge as this amazing butterfly.
Yeah, exactly. And as you said, everyone's epic already, so it's just we can see it. Just sometimes we need to give people a bit of a helping hand to see it themselves, don't we?
Absolutely, we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michaela.
Thank you.